Back in April, with much fanfare on so-called Liberation Day, Donald Trump unilaterally imposed hundreds of billions of dollars of taxes on the American people by slapping tariffs on the goods that we all buy. And he brags about it all the time, lying that other countries pay the tariffs, not Americans, certainly not the American consumer. Then last week, Republicans got their clocks cleaned in elections across the country, in large part because people are finally saying, wait a minute, prices haven't come down. In fact, they've gone up. So the Trump administration is desperately searching around for a solution to their political problem, and they found one that is a truly brilliant idea. How about we remove some of the tariffs on goods people buy that are driving prices up? Now, if only they could find the clown that imposed those tariffs in the first place. Congressman Brendan Boyle is a Democrat from Pennsylvania representing North Philadelphia, and he joins me now. Congressman, I really did have to chuckle today when I saw today's announcement after they so strenuously told us that tariffs don't jack up prices, that they're going to now be giving tariff relief for grocery items like bananas and coffee and other things that clearly have gone up in price and clearly been affected by the tariffs.
The brilliance will take your breath away. Yeah, congratulations, President Trump, for putting out part of the fire that you yourself started about 6 months ago. But already damage has been done to our economy. The average household in the United States will pay more than $1,800 more than they otherwise would have paid for household goods from last spring up until this upcoming spring. That is a massive tax increase when we think of it, about an extra $150 a month. And then in terms of what it's done to our GDP, it has shaved off a significant percentage, about 0.5%. So the reality is that the interest rates that, of course, we pay on our mortgages, student loans, auto loans, et cetera, they would already be lower because the Fed would have been able to lower rates at a faster rate this year, if not for the inflation resurgence that this president caused through his nonsensical tariff policy.
The reporting is indicating that this vote on the Epstein files is likely to happen on Tuesday. What are you anticipating in terms of how Republican House leadership plays this? How much the White House goes to bat to whip on this vote?
Yeah, so I've also been told by some Republican colleagues that they have been told by their leadership that it will be Tuesday. I expect this vote to pass. I mean, the White House did absolutely everything it possibly could to prevent the petition, the discharge petition, from getting the necessary 218 signatures. Remarkably, Mike Johnson kept us out of session for almost 2 months in order to delay getting the 218 signatures. But now that has happened, we will have the vote on Tuesday, and I expect it will pass by a large bipartisan majority. But here's the thing. Don't take false comfort from that, because there is, I think it's rather unclear whether or not this bill will get a vote in the Senate. If it does and it passes there, then we actually need President Trump to sign it. What are the odds that this president will actually sign something that he has been so strongly fighting against for months and months? I do fear that even if this were to pass the House, even if it were to pass the Senate, the president would veto it, and he would have enough Republicans who would vote to sustain that veto.
Do you think there will be? It does seem to me, I mean, obviously, the Senate doesn't want to take it up, but it does seem to me that the margins matter on this Tuesday vote, and that might be part of the reason they whip it, which is that, you know, if you got 300 yeses or 350, I mean, it's a huge margin. It might be tough for the Senate, right? Doesn't it put some pressure on them?
Yeah, that's a good point. It would. I will say, though, for the House Republicans who have been, probably telling the White House one thing and publicly telling the MAGA base something else, it's easier to duck putting your signature on a discharge petition than it is to actually duck a public vote and a recorded vote in the House of Representatives. So I do think this is going to be a fairly large majority on Tuesday.
You mentioned the Senate. I want to ask you about this provision that was inserted the last minute into the continuing resolution to keep the government open. We're going to do a little bit more on it ahead, but since I have you here, it seems like across the ideological spectrum, people in the House are apoplectic. It basically allows 8 senators who had their records looked at perfectly lawfully the way that any citizen might have them looked at in a criminal investigation, totally above board and by the book, could sue for $500,000, maybe as much as $1 million, and they could sue the Department of Justice. So Trump could just order the Department of Justice to settle with them. How furious are the members in your chamber about this?
It's legalized bribery, and by the way, it's a $1 million minimum because it's a very long story, but essentially the way it's drafted, each one of those 8 Republican senators would qualify twice, meaning it would be a minimum of $1 million payday. It's very likely unconstitutional. It's likely against Senate rules. And by the way, this would only apply to members of the United States Senate. No other group, no other protected class. Now suddenly U.S. senators are a protected class. What it also shows you is each one of those 8 Republican senators who voted for this bill probably violated Senate ethics rules, because there is a provision in the Senate rules, the same way there is in the House, the same way there is in almost every state legislature, that you can't vote for a bill that will uniquely enrich you as a standalone, not as a larger group or entity. That's clearly what they did. They just voted for something in which they are one of only 8 people out of 340 million in the United States who will get $1 million.
Congressman Brendan Boyle. Yeah, we'll see. I mean, there's going to be a vote next week, I think, to strip it out. We played that Mike Johnson sound. Of course, same issue there, right? It's got to go back to the Senate. We'll see what happens there, Congressman Brendan Boyle. Thank you so much.